Mortal Kombat 1 was never supposed to end like this. This game was marketed as a reset, a foundation for the future of the franchise, new timelines, new systems, new ideas, and yet, less than 2 years, it's over. No more characters, no more story expansions, and the explanation we were given was we're moving on? Nah, we're not going out like that. Tonight, I want to slow this down and really talk about what happened. We'll get into a fanboy perspective, the angry fans perspective, but most importantly, the business and industry reality perspective. Because once you zoom out, this doesn't feel like a creative decision from NetherRealm at all. It feels like a roadblock from Warner Brothers and their greed for money. With that being said, I'm going to break this video down into some beautiful chapters for you so we can keep things organized and that you guys can have a wonderful video to watch and the conversation's not all over the place. With that being said, let's get into chapter 1. MK1 was built to last. Let's start with something that people try to rewrite now. The idea that Mortal Kombat 1 was always meant to be short-lived. That just isn't true. Mortal Kombat 1 launched as a reboot, not a send-off. A reboot only makes sense if you plan on building on it. Look at the systems they designed. Cameo fighters alone tells you this wasn't a one-and-done idea. That system exists to be expanded over. Now, granted, personal opinion, I don't like cameos, should have never been in the game, but let's get back on script here. Nobody buys into a reboot thinking, yeah, they're probably done with this in a year. The entire structure of the gaming community screams longevity. So when support ended, it didn't feel natural. It felt interrupted. So my whole thing is this. If I was to tell you guys that the plans that they had for Mortal Kombat 1 were just outrageous, you probably wouldn't have a problem believing it. Let's review the circumstantial evidence. Again, we have a new world. We had new modes, and they was just doing everything that they could to try to stay above water, but WB being so far in debt and money hungry is one of the reasons why they pulled the plug on the game once the DLC came out, and it flopped. It completely flopped. Warner Brothers Discovery said, I don't like this, and they folded on NetherRealm Studios like a lawn chair and got on up out of there. That's what happened with that situation. Chapter 2. How support actually ended. Now let's talk about how Mortal Kombat 1 support ended abruptly, because this part matters. This wasn't a slow decline. It wasn't a farewell tour. It wasn't a last hurrah season. It was a quiet shutdown. Yes, we're still getting balance patches. I'll acknowledge that. Yes, the game isn't abandoned technically. People are still playing it. But let's not pretend that that's the same thing as real support. No new characters, no future story, no roadmaps, no Sonya, no Jax. When a live or semi-live game ends like this, it's usually means one thing: the money stopped making sense. And anytime the money stopped making sense, the sense stopped making money, they canceled the game. Now, I just want to go off script for a second and discuss how other games sunset content, how this felt different. When games are getting ready to reach the end of its life cycle and it's been done correctly, you'll feel it. For example, Grand Theft Auto 5, we got the Mansions DLC. We all know we're not that far away from the final DLC before we ride off into the sunset for GTA 6. You can just feel it. It's in the air. Mansions solidify everything that we have done, achieved, and accomplished. Now let's get back on script here. Developers don't just wake up one day and say, yeah, we're bored, let's stop. That's not how the industry works. That is a decision that comes from the head of WB, and that's why it was made. They felt like they were not exploiting their fans enough, or the fans were pushing back too hard, which made them drop the prices of those seasonal fatalities and things of that nature. And they was like, listen, let's get this game up out of here and let's start cooking on another game that we can start, using to abuse our power to take money from them. Chapter 3, follow the money, not the emotion. This is the uncomfortable chapter, but it's probably the most important. Games are not judged on passion. They're judged on performance. DLC needs to sell consistently. Expansions needs to justify their cause. And if they don't, supports get cut. Here's the thing people misunderstood the most. Mortal Kombat 1 didn't have to fail to lose support. It just had to underperform compared to expectations. And expectations for Mortal Kombat under Warner Brothers are extremely high. So I just want to take a moment out to say this. The hype for the combat packs, it was there. However, they got greedy with these freaking cameo characters. Now, don't get me wrong. Cameo characters do sell to a certain degree, but we would much rather see more Mortal Kombat-ish characters. The number of Mortal Kombat characters should never be diminished for cameo characters. If anything, we should always get a certain amount of Mortal Kombat characters, and then the rest should be maybe 1 or 2 cameo characters per game. That's just my take on it. Which brings us to the real power dynamic in our next chapter. Chapter 4, who actually makes the decision? NetherRealm Studios does not own Mortal Kombat. They do not control the budget. They do not decide how long a game gets funded. Warner Brothers Games does. And Warner Brothers has been cutting costs across its gaming divisions for quite a while. When publishers tighten budgets, long-term content is the first casualty of war. Developers create worlds. Publishers decide when the lights get cut off. That's why this ending feels corporate and not creative. There has been multiple studios that has closed because of WB, but that's a whole separate video that I will be digging into. Chapter 6, the silence and what it implies. This is where I want you to pay attention to what wasn't said. Ed Boon has not come out and said this was always the plan. No clear statement saying they told the full story they wanted to tell. No explanation of why years of support suddenly weren't needed. In this industry, silence usually means contracts, and contracts usually mean someone else made the call. Now, to be clear, this part is purely speculation, but it's reasonable speculation. Warner Brothers likely decided MK1's live service direction wasn't worth continuing and moved NetherRealm onto something safer, more predictable, and more controllable. Not because MK1 was bad, but because it wasn't profitable enough. Now, as we move into our closing arguments, I want to make it a conversation even further for you guys. So here's the real question. Did Mortal Kombat 1 lose support because it failed the fans or because it failed the spreadsheet? Let me know what you think. Not the loud answer, the honest one. If you make it through this whole episode, then this channel is for you. This isn't clickbait. This is long form breakdowns, episode by episode. If Warner Brothers was willing to cut MK1 support early, then we need to seriously talk about what that means for NetherRealm's future, especially when it comes to Injustice 3. That's the next conversation.